All right, hi. So it's 1 o'clock almost, so we might as well start. It's the Q&A for sales that we do every Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. I thought I'd do it from the boardroom today simply because I'm shooting a webinar here. I've got a lot to do, so rather than running back to my other office, I thought I would roll it out here. I've got a lot of questions from you guys, so thanks for sending those through. If you're interested, the webinar I'm building is on the 8 essentials of sales. So I'm keeping it sales focused, and if you're interested in that, there'll be information coming out soon on it. And it's to accompany my Basics of Sales course. So that is currently available. Because I've had a few changes I've decided to make, the course is currently not even $147. I'm just selling it at set 47. So if you want those 6 essentials, get in touch with me. So here's the boardroom. This is where I usually record a lot of the other content you often might not see for things like adverts and whatnot, but also this is where I tend to see clients and meet them face to face, because it's a nicer environment than getting into my home office, although I prefer the home office because it's a lot easier to do things from there. So let's run through this. The questions I've got today are quite intensive, so I just want to make sure I found them first, but you guys have sent in quite a lot, so thank you. I'll try my best to whiz through them all. Just before I start, I wanted to say thanks to everyone who's been really kind in their well-wishing this week. I've had a bit of a rubbish time lately with a lot of pains. Those of you who I've scheduled strategy calls with for consulting, thank you to all of you for being very, very accommodating. Basically Tuesday and Wednesday this week, so 2 days ago and yesterday, I spent in hospital with tests and ultrasounds and things like that, with huge stomach pains that I've had for a while. And yeah, the short version is I'm out of hospital now. That's the main bit, right? And instead of laying around on a bed, I thought I'd try and get on with things. So I'm feeling okay. And again, thank you. The messages are flooding through and you're all really, really kind. So let's have a look. The first question we've got here is, after a call and email, I rarely get a response. What should I do? Okay, fine. So I think the main thing is to make sure that you're obviously keeping interest levels high for the call themselves. Also make sure that the emails you're sending out are succinct and to the point. Ask yourself, do you really need to be sending emails? Often it's a little easier just to go direct. Have the phone call, see if they're keen on buying, and if they aren't, then call back as soon as you possibly can to continue the process. What I would say to answer this question here is, after a call and email, I rarely get a response. What should I do? Well, you should be calling them back. You should be following up. Remember, you're the one who contacted them, so make sure you're the one being proactive. If I've had a phone call with someone, okay, and then I've closed them but not been able to close them on that particular call, so I have to send out an email proposition or something, I would want to be following up as soon as I possibly can. Remember that across time, you're going to lose interest, okay? So time kills that emotional interest. Sure, they'll understand the practical detail of what you do, but the emotional interest will drop off a cliff. So you need to get back fast. I'm talking about, it depends on the product, obviously. If it's a major deal, then it might take a bit of time for due diligence. But if I have a phone call in the morning and I can't close them on the phone right then because maybe some data has to go for, or some kind of proposition via email, fine, why am I not calling them back this afternoon? If you send out an email, you should be following up. Proactivity is important. And look, if they're like, oh, don't pester me, or you're pressing a bit hard, well, what's happening here really is it's an indicator that you're not providing enough value. It's your fault. A better thing to do is give great value, create a great connection and rapport, and in return, when you call them back, that prospect's going to be saying, oh, hi, great to hear from you again, how are you? And that's what you're actually after. Focus on the connection and the relationship. People prefer to buy from people they like and get on with, rather than, they don't really get on with and maybe the product is fairly interesting. It needs to be about that connection. Follow up with them, get on the phone, that's the best thing to do, or go meet them again. You know what, I'll send you over an email later today and I'll catch up with you tomorrow morning. I'm in the area again, we'll have another coffee, see what you think. Something like that. Be proactive. No one has a problem with that if you're creating them value, so bear that in mind, okay? Next question, how can I take my sales to the next level? I make money each month, I work hard, and I put in the hours. Good, well done, but I want 10K plus. Well, that's good. I remember getting my first £10,000 paycheck in a month. It was a wonderful moment, and having that extra digit before the decimal place is a lovely feeling, because you think, you know what, I've really put a shift in, and that's a way of, it's a kind of a signifier of success. I remember I kept the slip for a while, because those kind of things were trophies for me. Look, if you are putting in the time, if you're putting in the hours on the phone and things like that, it may just be that getting to the next level isn't about working longer hours or working harder. It's more likely to be the case that you need to be thinking about the proposition you're offering. Because here's the thing, I've done hundreds of sales seminars with clients over the years, and often what you find is that the sales rep themselves is a little bit stuck in this world of, here's how much my product costs, here's how much I charge them therefore, and asking for more is something they're just a little bit uncomfortable with doing. Usually, 99% of the time, you're the problem. You're the reason why you don't get more money from sales. You're the reason why we don't upsell and create larger packages, for instance. When I wanted to step up a level, remember this was a good 10 years ago or so, I just stopped charging the amount I was originally charging. I started charging more money by giving more value and adding greater components to my package. A great way of stepping up isn't increasing the volume or number of sales, it's increasing the value and therefore the amount of money you get in each sale. And this goes for sales managers as well. You know, if you've got a team of people who are selling on your behalf, and really they work their nuts off to get you 2 sales a week, well, asking for 6 sales a week to scale up, sure, if you could do it, then that would be a great way of making more money. But a better way of doing it is to add greater value. What other things could you throw into onto the proposition? Could you start involving phone calls? I'll give you a call every 3 months. What things are of value to the client? Or could you maybe just charge a bit more money for whatever reason? Usually it's a kind of an arbitrary amount of money anyway. I remember the first sales product I had was £3,400. I was selling internet marketing 15 years ago. And we just said one day as a business, you know what, let's see if we can generate more income as a company. Let's charge 3,950. So it was an additional 550 quid. And for every single unit we sold, we suddenly made a lot more. So it made such a difference. And to bear that in mind, it's really crucial that sometimes you don't have to work harder. You need to add greater value. Look at larger clients, maybe your leads need work. Train as well. Do all this smart stuff instead, and that's how you take yourself to the next level. Also, what I started doing, I remember, rather than going for pithy little joke companies when I was pitching them, find they were easy to get hold of the people I wanted to sell to, I went for big companies. Then I started closing the likes of Samsung and Sony. I remember I closed Deloitte, a big consultancy, HSBC, a big financial bank here in the UK. All these companies, suddenly they had a lot more money I could work with, and I was just knocking on doors. Also change the way you do things, because it's easy to get stuck behind the phone, and that's quite efficient in the sense that you can just bang out calls all the time. But sometimes you'll make a lot more if you go and meet someone face to face. And I remember when I worked in the city, I would call up, when I was working in the finance sales role, I called up companies, in Canary Wharf. This is where our major finance area is as well, out in the Docklands region. And I'd say, do you know what? I'm in your area in 3 hours for a coffee. Are you free to meet? And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Why not? I'm having a coffee anyway. Right. Phone down, get on the train, I need to get over there fast, and get in their offices, because suddenly, if you're on the phone, being in the office means you're putting yourself out there a bit more. That really made a big difference as well. So maybe have a look at your approach. Go for bigger people, charge greater amount, add more value in terms of components to your proposition as well, okay? Lily, hello, thank you very much for joining in, and thank you for welcoming me back. For all of you, as I mentioned earlier, it's been really amazing, the support you've been giving me. I'm still in a bit of pain. I've had about 2 weeks of it now, so I'm kind of getting used to it. But the last 2 days have been rubbish, in the sense that I've been in a very sterile, literally, environment in the hospital. It's been quite nice to get out of there, and I've been here in the boardroom today shooting a webinar, so I thought I would do the Q&A from here just to be efficient, right? So I wanted to do a bit of catching up. So next question, what's your best opener in a cold call? That's a question. It's difficult because it depends on what you're doing. Actually, the best opener, really, is just asking, how are you? And this might sound a bit weird, right? Because there's this strange group of, or kind of, let's say, there's a strange set of people that seem to think that saying how are you is a mistake. If it's a cold call, if you're knocking on a door, if you're meeting someone for the first time, if you're calling them for the first time, how are you? Well, you don't want to do that. Because if you say, how are you, what might happen is they think you're a salesperson. Come on, man. If you call someone and you've never spoken to them before, they'll know that you're trying to sell them something. That's what people tend to do. If you are meeting someone for the first time, you're trying to sell them something. I'm talking socially. If I meet someone in a bar for the first time, I'm clearly trying to sell them. On me, I'm going to be having some kind of sales scenario whereby I'm trying to get them to like me, because that's what people do. In a business or sales environment, it's obviously going to try and sell something. How are you is a great opener because it establishes for you what this person's kind of vibe is right now. Okay, if you're face to face, you have a lot more to go off. You've got the whole visual. If you're on the phone, you've got to ask it. Don't just let them pick up and then chat at them. Get them involved from the start. So the answer's cold. So the answer to how are you is, oh God, what do you want? All right, fine. Well, at least I know what I've got here. At least I know that this person is like probably not so keen. Maybe they're having a bad day. Okay, so I need to respond in the right way. Oh wow, so what's wrong? Are you okay? Do you get calls like this all the time? Maybe engage with them directly on what their problem is. Or, you know what? You do get people who actually are having a good day. They are out there. Plenty of the time, if you say it in the right way, they're like, yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you? I'm wonderful. Don't chat about the weather. Come on, don't do that thing. Okay, but use this as a point to say, look, I'm really great. I'm really pleased you picked up the phone. I have some research I've done. I really think I can help you. Let me just explain why this is going to be worth listening to, and then get on with it. You know, otherwise I just don't know what my state of my prospect is, and I really want to make sure I'm making use of that. Okay, so I hope that helps. Lily, thank you very much. Yeah, what happened? This is what. So I've been in the hospital a couple of days. If you're just tuning in, Lily here, who's listening, has asked what happened. The doctors don't really know what the problem is. I was in hospital a couple of months ago. The short version there is that I had appendicitis. I don't appear to now. I've had ultra scans, blood tests, everything you can name, and they're all a bit perplexed. So it's antibiotics, see how you are in a week. So painkillers too. I'm basically tolerating feeling a bit rubbish all the time because the old antibiotics make you feel sick. So this is character building for me, because doing this live while feeling really nauseous is pretty rough. But what else am I going to do? Sit around and pretend I feel, or feel rubbish for myself? No thanks. So let's crack on. But thank you for your concern. It really means a lot to me. Not just Lily, but everyone who's been sending these really kind messages. I really want to make the point that when I posted that I was in hospital, I'm absolutely 100% not searching for pity. Okay, your obviously your kindness is wonderful, but what I did want to do is make a point. So hopefully that was clear as well. Anyway, onwards. So the next question: what's the best thing to say when I'm losing a prospect? Well, you should watch my webinar, because I've just been shooting some information on that. The way to look at this is this. If I'm losing someone, so maybe I've got someone keen on me and then I'm starting to lose him a bit, what it means is the value I've been given, or rather I'm giving them, is starting to wane. Maybe I'm being a bit vague. Maybe the questions I'm asking aren't that stimulating. So I've kind of created or earned the right, as I say, this higher level of value in the person's mind, practical in terms of what I can offer, emotional in terms of the connection and rapport with me. However, if I'm losing them because I'm vague and so on, what I need to do is simply ask lower intensity questions, drop in some more value again. And there's an interesting analogy I kind of used in the webinar, which is James Bond actually did this. If you've ever seen the film Goldfinger, I urge you to watch it. It's one of the classics, okay? In Goldfinger, James Bond, I believe he's like laying on a metal slab, okay, and Goldfinger's the baddie, okay, and he wants to have him killed. He's of no use to him anymore. And so he's got this laser, and he's firing this laser, he's coming up his legs. He's going to basically slice James Bond in half. Where he's going between his legs, it's going to be arguably the physically most important part of James Bond he's about to slice up. James Bond, as I say, carries no more value to Goldfinger. He's not even chatting with him. He's talking to one of his colleagues or something. James Bond drops it. He doesn't say some huge, long, waffly thing. He drops a piece of value. He says something. I think it's either a question or a piece of information. He says it. It's short. It's low intensity in terms of it doesn't require much to pay attention to understand it. Goldfinger hesitates. Then he says, you know what, switch off that laser. I need this guy alive now. I need to speak to him about something. He bought himself back in, okay, because he earned the right by using that valuable information, okay, that he dropped in. So you have those nuggets, data, evidence, a testimonial, maybe some extra bit of value in terms of what you're offering that can make a difference. This kind of stuff is what, when you're bottoming out and someone's like, do you know what, could you send an email, I'm not so keen, or look, I think we're finished now, thanks so much for your time, let's maybe finish up. That's when you drop in a low intensity closed question along the lines of what's your name. Obviously you wouldn't be asking it later on, but the kind of question that doesn't require much brain power. They don't even realize they've answered it. Then you chuck in another one, maybe drop a bit of value now. Actually, you know what, that's quite an interesting point. And now we're back. Now the conversation's running again. And that's how you swing them around. That's how you get people back on board. I've done this many times when someone's about to hang the phone up on me, 10 minutes later we're signing a deal because I just drop in some low intensity questions. The mistake is thinking you still have the right to ask these high intensity open questions and that you've bought all the time in the world to chat to this person. You haven't. You're going to lose them if you're vague, so you need to earn the right again. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so next one. How do I make people call me instead of the other way around? Now here's the question, because a lot of people, look, no one loves the cold call quite as much as the warm call. No matter what you say, there's something delightful about someone calling you or sending you a mail saying, I've just seen, I just need to get in touch with you. I really think you'll be able to help me out. Look at the reason why someone would contact you, okay? Instead of you contacting them because they either don't have a need or don't know you or both, the reason why someone would contact you is typically because they have a need or they know you, or both, okay? Now, what you want is someone who has the need to get in touch, and usually if someone in the sales or professional or business world contacts you, it means that they have a need, but also they're aware you're there, right? So if someone's got to be aware that you're available, you're out there in the ethos, for them to call you or contact you, what does it mean? It means that you need to put yourself out there. So to answer this, how do I make people call me? You don't make them, you're just there all the time. Why am I doing this webinar? Really? Well, I do enjoy it. It's nice to impart the information. My agenda here genuinely is answer questions and help people out, because actually it helps building the brand and things like that. Sometimes people think this is actually quite useful, and when they think it's useful, they join in and they maybe ask some questions. Maybe they then over time think, do you know what, this guy does know things that could help me, let's maybe take this relationship a bit further. It's kind of obvious, that's why people do anything like this. But the key is, if someone thinks, I need help with telesales, I need help with this or that, they already think of me because they know me. When they have the need, they then get in touch. So I don't make cold calls for a lot of my businesses anymore. The ones I'm starting out I do, but I don't now, because if you put yourself out there enough and help people and put out great value, then people will come to you. Do not expect for a moment that people are just going to all come flooding to you. Don't moan or complain if they're not doing it. It's your fault for not putting yourself out there enough. And if you're asking people or telling people to contact you, well then you better have given them enough information and value and good favor before that. Otherwise, as usual, you haven't earned the right for them to do that. I hope that makes sense. It's really important stuff. There's too much trying to take in this world, and there's not enough giving and helping people. Just help. The karma you receive is phenomenal. This is one of the main things I focus on in my business, is just trying to help people as much as possible. As a result, For instance, just off the top of my head, just having the agenda of helping people and being out there, I've had people who have given me testimonials from people I've never even heard of. That's a bit selfish. But also, I've had the Huffington Post, who's currently doing an article on me. They've popped out of nowhere. What an opportunity. I've had a guy who's had me endorse his book. He's released a book and he's like, I would love it if you could endorse this. You give such great value. It would really help me out. I've had people who have invited me to speak at events. I've had people who said, could we do some kind of partnership with your course? I've had someone recently who suggested I work with a charity. And in fact, another chap a few months ago who, because of the value I was giving, he decided that he would get in touch with me and say, I love what you do. It's really influenced my world and helped me with selling what I'm selling. So what I would love is to donate money to a charity of your choice, Richard. It's amazing. There is a charity that's really important to me. I told him about it and he's donated a small amount of the actual income just from good favour. So look at the things you can get out of this. So many opportunities come, and much more in a fulfilling way, by helping as your agenda. That's what makes people call you, by being there, by helping, by being abundant as well. Okay, I think I saw that Suze was tuning in there a few minutes ago. Happy birthday for yesterday, and Lily, thank you very much. Yes, Huffington Post should be soon. I was told it's the start of November. The copywriters are just kind of updating what they're writing about me. So I think they wanted to do a little bit of a kind of what was it that made me move from the city where I worked originally through to helping with startups and things like that. And they wanted to kind of tap into what was my why and the story and things like that. Suze, I hope you had a good birthday yesterday. So let's go on to the next question. So where was I up to? So where do you get your leads for high ticket consulting? I suppose I've kind of answered that there. My high ticket consulting, so I charge, because I don't feel it is right, it's a bit disingenuous actually to try and get as many clients as I can for high ticket consulting, because actually what people pay for is me, my time and my attention. It's not really fair if I'm stacking in hundreds of people at the same time. Oh yeah, but I've got loads of hustle, lots of people like to say, and I'll grind it out, I'll look after loads of customers. No, you won't. What happens when you have too many customers for a high ticket product? If you're the person that's physically delivering it, you're going to not give them the kind of level of service you otherwise might. Okay, so what you need to be thinking is, for high ticket customers, I need to think, right, I need a capacity level. I need to know how many I'm going to be servicing. The book by Daniel Priestley called Oversubscribed covers this really well, by the way. And I need to select a number of people I want to work with. How do I reach them? I just am in touch all the time with people through these different touch points, to use Daniel Priestley's language, with things like this live webinar, with the kind of posts I put out. Rather than just regurgitating other people's memes from Instagram, I will rationalize and add my own flavor or my own level of interest in this particular quote or whatever, and rationalize why I'm using it. I will also use things like sales funnels through adverts on Facebook as well. Basically a bit of everything. There's the blog, there's my books and things like that. People ask me pretty much every day. I get an email or a message saying, could you recommend a book for this, that or the other? All this stuff is out there because it's attracting the kind of people I wish to work with. And what I tend to find is that I get a message then each day, from someone who's like, would you be able to help me with my business? This is happening, or this is happening. Could we hop on a call, please? And, on 8stepstartup.com, there's the application to work with me. There's also the opportunity just to have a phone call and see where it goes from there. But to get the high value leads, you need to be talking through all of your different social media and other types of content to that level of person. Talk to only the audience you're trying to reach. Don't talk to the other people that you're not trying to reach. Because if you do, you'll end up with people maybe who aren't able to afford your high ticket consulting, who are contacting you, and you're like, well, we can't work here because I'm charging you this much money for it, because if I didn't, it would be a little unfair for the others. And so you end up maybe arguably wasting a bit of time with people who aren't going to be resonating as much as they might. Again, it's the abundance and the value you give. You've got to show up every single day. I can't remember the last time I wasn't posting things that I've written that day. Content goes out every day, no days off. Weddings, whatever it is, birthdays, always happening. Okay, so don't take time off from it. Be there for people, help them out. Remember, if your agenda is helping them, you tend to find you get a lot in return. What's the most important thing in objection handling? Right, so the process of objection, this is sales, I suppose. The process of objection handling should be a three-part one. Firstly, it's to acknowledge, and I'll cover this in a sec, to acknowledge there is an objection. Secondly is to handle it using whatever lyrics or data or evidence you choose to use to prove that, not that they're wrong, but prove that there's a way they should be looking at things to essentially handle the objection. And then thirdly, crucially, is to check that that person is sold, because the objection is not handled until you're convinced that they are convinced. So just because you say something or show someone something that handles the objection as you believe, unless you check and they're like, yeah, I suppose you kind of make sense, that's not handled yet. That objection still stands and it will still impede my ability to close a deal until the time I've actually sold it. Bear that in mind. Handling objection is one part handling, but secondly it's checking. Have I convinced that person yet? Moreover, have they convinced me that the objection's been dealt with? Okay, Joe, great to see you on live here as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm just trying to ramp back up again, so look, I can be live again, and I'm going to hop on your Facebook live soon, I hope. Okay, thank you. I'm not feeling great, but well enough to get on with stuff, so that's a very kind message. So to answer the question here, what's the most important thing in objection handling? It's that first part. It's the empathy. It's the acknowledgement. And as many say, I kind of agree with them, you should really be agreeing, to a degree, you should agree with that person. So it doesn't mean if someone says to you, for instance, you know, your product's no good, you go, yeah, you're right. Product's no good. I completely agree with you. Well, no, what you do is you're saying, look, I agree that there is a way of looking at this. Let me show you how others look at it. Rather than going, no, you're wrong. Because if you say someone is wrong and hit them face on with it, that's going to put barriers up, killing the most important part of sales, which is the connection and the relationship and the rapport you have. You need that more than the quality of the product and your sales technique. It's about connection. Don't want to kill that rapport, okay? So keep that emotional buy-in to you high. But what it comes down to is showing some empathy. Do you know what? I get it. I see your point. I can see why you're saying that. Or if you don't, look, could you elaborate a bit more? I get that there's an objection here. I'm acknowledging it. Get them to elaborate. You know, this is the reason why I feel this way, Richard. Okay, fine. So are you saying it because of this or because of this? Give me a bit more. Okay, fine. So now what I'm doing is I'm empathizing. Now I'm going to say, do you know what? It's actually something that's come up before. Here's the reason why you don't need to worry about that. Then I'm going to go handle my objection. And as I said, you then go check that you've handled it and get convinced that you have by them. So if you are showing that you are able to empathize and understand and acknowledge in the first point that objection, you're showing you're listening. And if you're not doing that, if you ignore the objection, hoping it will go away, how's that person going to feel? Typically a sale is often, sometimes you do it with a few people, but often it will be between you and someone else. They're going to feel like, do you know what, this person's really not listening to me. I clearly have a problem here. Even if this is a subconscious dialogue they have in their mind, they're going to be thinking, I don't feel I'm being listened to. I don't feel I'm being looked after. You need to be in there saying, well, actually, I think you've got an issue here. And you know what? One of the great things about this crucial part of dealing with objections is sometimes someone has an objection and they don't say it. They don't say anything. If you're on the phone, it's really difficult because you have to listen to when they don't speak. You have to, if you're face to face, you can often see things in their face. You show them something. I'm talking, or maybe I'm giving them great value, they love it. I'm showing them something on a spreadsheet or whatever it might be they're asked for. But then if I feel like they wince, they just, they weren't quite there. I need to stop and acknowledge it. Acknowledging the objection is so important. Do you know what? I think I'm losing you there. What's the problem? What have I? Well, don't be too aggressive. You know, what have I missed here? I had you a moment ago. I'm not so sure I have. What's the problem? Be real. Call it out. Look, there seems to be an objection here. If they say it, great, makes it easier. But if they don't, you need to call them on it. Don't leave it. Let me just stop for a second. I feel like maybe that wasn't quite as interesting as the stuff I've said before. You're right. I'm not so interested in that. What is it I'm missing here? Because usually people are biting my arm at this point, and you don't seem to. What's up? Okay, get this conversation going. Do you know what? I completely see what you're saying. Okay, great. Empathy. Listen. Make them feel like, you know, you're someone that they're comfortable talking to. Okay, comfort around a chat with you and trust equals a great foundation for a close. Okay, hopefully that helps. Sue's just sent through a question. Is your keep on going attitudes foundation from sport and taekwondo? Well done for recognizing, for remembering taekwondo. Most people are like, oh, you do karate, don't you? Which there's nothing wrong with, of course. Yeah, I do taekwondo. I've got 2 schools. I'm going to be teaching there this evening. By teaching, what I mean is I'm going to be standing and talking. I will not be doing too much. I'm going to use my seniors to do a lot of that. I think my keep on going attitude isn't wholly from taekwondo, although the reason why I've won medals in the past is from the keep on going attitude. When I've been, you know, kicked lots and it hurts, but there's a medal at stake, I certainly have kept going. I think it stems from deeper things than that. It's a case that I recognise I've got fairly good self-awareness, and I'm very keen to always realise my full potential. I don't want to be a bit older looking back thinking, oh, I wish I'd worked a bit harder, knowing I have the capacity to do so. So the keep on going mentality isn't stupidity. Look, let's be clear. If I was told yesterday, you need rest, Richard, you need to not do a thing, I'm not going to be stupid. My health is more important than anything else. But given that's not the case, given it's antibiotics and try and carry on as you are and tolerate or manage the pain, well then let's do that then. So I think that there are many people who have pity parties, as they're known, many people who almost seek, crave, or weirdly enjoy in a perverse way getting attention through pity and feeling sorry for themselves. And I think that rather than trying to seek attention, you should just get on with it. And, you know, that's just my view on things, I suppose. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Suze. Let's finish up. So maybe a couple more, maybe one more question. So what's more important, being efficient or being effective? That's a very good question. So let me just be clear. Being efficient, okay, is doing something which saves you time. Being effective, we're talking about sales now. Being effective really is doing something that's more likely to close a sale, being effective at doing it. So if I give an example, an efficient way of working in sales would be to do an email shot. When I send out an email to my list of 40,000 people, for instance, that's efficient. However, it's less effective than calling every single one. If I make a phone call or even go and meet every single one of those people, the chances of me getting sales go through the roof. But it's not as efficient in the sense I'm not approaching so many people. What you tend to find is it can even out, you know. If I hit 40,000 people with an email, if I made calls to as many of them as I could, I'd probably make a similar amount of money. Or it depends on the product. When you're starting your business, when you're starting out in sales, 100%, my experience, and I've taught hundreds of seminars over the years and I've closed millions of pounds myself, it's always the same. You should focus on being effective first, okay? Being effective is important because if you go to the approach of, oh, maybe I could send emails here instead of being on the phone, I could send out loads. Maybe I'll use a templated email. That might make life even easier. Trying to take yourself out of the equation will mean you're less effective. Get on the phone, learn your trade and call people. It's arduous, it takes a long time, but you're more likely to close things. It validates your decision to do this job in the first place and it gives you confidence because of course you're closing things. Moving forward, you then want to look at what things make you efficient because of course the answer to this question is do both, be effective and efficient. So for instance, if you're going to be making phone calls, then to be efficient, of course, what I need to be doing is making sure I always speak to the correct person, making sure that if I have an international product, I'm calling international companies, making sure I call people who have that kind of money. What am I charging? Am I charging a $40,000 product? If I'm charging a company that, I want to be approaching companies that are more likely to afford it. You know, not a startup, because typically speaking, they have less money than a company that's been around a bit longer or who has a turnover of several million a year. Okay, so being efficient then is in my leads, making sure the leads or prospects I'm targeting are people that are relevant. Okay, so a bit of both is important, but to start with, you want to focus on being direct, be effective. Don't think that you can start on day one and do something general, such as just do webinars and hope that everyone will buy from you. Yeah, it can work, but if you're starting out, focus on just getting in touch with people. Sometimes you have to meet the people face to face. Again, depends on the product, but it's a great way of getting things going. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Both, but mostly effective to begin with, and then make it efficient as you go along. Okay, I'm going to finish up there. Time for some more medication. Thank you very much for everyone's kind words, and I will see you on Monday, if not before. But I will certainly be doing the the startup Q&A at that stage. By next week, the Basics of Sales course will be $147. If you want the sales course now, you can get it for $47. I'm holding it at that price until that goes live. That Basics of Sales course you can purchase right away, has all the content. It's about 4.5 hours, I think, across 6 different sessions. Each of the sessions cover different essentials, and I've condensed all my experience with all of the thousands of pounds worth of courses and books I've used over the years as well, and it covers things like rapport building, identifying the need, objection handling, closing, upselling, of course, mindset and attitude. If you're involved in sales, and if you're watching this, you probably are in some guise, then you should check it out. $47. If you hate it, as always, in 90 days since buying it, I will give your money back. Just tell me, you know what? This is no good. I chucked $47 your way. I knew all this stuff anyway. Richard, I want my money back. No problem. Have your money. No problem. Okay. The last thing I want is someone feel I've been screwed. Okay. So you got nothing to lose. The risk is on my side, but there's literally no one so far that's had a problem with it. So I hope that helps. Speak to you all soon. Have a great Thursday, and thanks again for listening in.